If you can, touch on the unit economics.
Today we do about $2,000 of contribution margin per home. Times 4 million homes is $8 billion of contribution margin. You convert 50% of contribution margin net income, that's $4 billion a year of net income. The S&P 500 trades at a 25 times multiple. That's a $100 billion company. That's 20% share of one state.
And that's just Texas, yeah.
So the opportunity is really big.
Touch on the stuff that people don't talk about, the actual energy metrics, the actual economics.
We're an energy trading shop. So we do energy arbitrage to go bid assets in the wholesale markets. And then we also sell power. We're a retailer, meaning we buy power from the wholesale markets, we sell it at retail, we make a spread between those two things.
If there's one thing you could say to the world, what would you say to the world?
If you're out there and you're looking for something to get passionate about, find a freaking hard problem and find some really smart people that push you and challenge you, that want to work on that problem with you, and just get after it. And the last thing I'll say is,
The Yesterday podcast is brought to you by Ro, the all-in-one banking platform for startups. Thousands of companies use Ro. You get everything you need to manage your startup's cash. Fast banking setup, cards with up to 2% cash back, and yield that turns your company cash into extra runway. All super useful in the early days of launching. But the thing founders really love about Ro is their team. Candidly, they were amazing to partner with us on. They're about 3 hours ahead of my time zone. I don't think they ever took over 10 minutes to respond back to a text or email of mine. They're obsessed with helping founders beat industry giants, and will go to the end of the earth to help them do so. Exclusively for Yesterday Pod listeners and viewers, you'll get a $1,500 statement credit and tons of exclusive perks when you manage your company cash with Ro. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit ro.co/yesterday. That's rho.co/yesterday. Ro's a fintech, not a bank. Checking and card services provided by Webster Bank. Member FDIC. See rewards terms for details. We'll start as early as possible. Try to merge both of your origin stories and then tell the base story and build up until present day. And so first, I think it would be good if you could both just introduce yourself. Who are you? What are you doing? And where were you born?
go first. Zach Dell, co-founder and CEO, born here in Austin, Texas. Started my career as a private equity investor at Blackstone. Spent 2 years at Thrive Capital before starting the company here with Justin.
I'm Justin Lopez, co-founder and COO. Was originally born in the suburbs of Detroit and lived in the Midwest early on. Originally went to Michigan, studied mechanical engineering. Out of school was at SpaceX and led the team down in Brownsville, Texas, starting up the Starship production facility down there, and worked on Falcon. And more recently was at a company called Anduril, was doing defense technology as we discussed, and started the company about 2.5 years ago with Zach.
What was little Justin doing?
I was taking apart at the time, because I'm old, VCRs and computers, and putting them back together, and working on a car and house project for my dad, who's also an engineer. And it's kind of how I got interested in physically building things and manufacturing and how stuff works.
Nice. Did you have close friends at the time? I grew up in this very tight-knit neighborhood. We were always very competitive, played basketball a lot. But what was that experience like? What was high school like?
Yeah, high school was great. So I had a number of close friends in high school doing robotics. So there's this thing called FIRST Robotics that you may be familiar with. I had a tight-knit group of folks that I was working with on that. It was sort of my first foray into quote-unquote real engineering in high school. And then in college did something called Baja SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers. It's a totally different like engineering project, but the same concept, which is like you go compete against other schools. And that's where I found my friend group and community.
I love it. And what was little Zach doing?
Little Zach was competing.
How so?
In sports, in school. I love competition. I love to win. I played every sport you could imagine, basketball as well, but football, baseball, soccer, golf, tennis, track. Also a very curious kid, love learning about things, studying new things, trying to understand things that I don't understand, and spending time with people that were smart and interesting, and trying to learn about the world.
Give me some specifics. Obviously, your dad started an amazing company. What was that like?
It was really inspiring because I got to see him do something that he loved and still loves, right? I mean, he's 40 years in and he's still running the company, and he'll sit down with me and Justin, he'll come here and he'll talk to us, and you see the energy that he has for what he does. It's like the same kind of energy that we have for what we do 40 years later, right? So he's still just as energized as he was when I was 5 years old, when I was 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old. Like the energy has never gone away. And I think it's because he gets to work on really hard problems with really smart people that are really important and impactful in the world. And that set a great example for me and made it very clear to me what I want to do with my life. People are like, oh, well, what made you want to be an entrepreneur? I'm like, that's a really silly question. Like, I got to watch this guy. Oh, why does he get to have all the fun, right? Like, this is clearly a great way to spend one's life. And so it's incredibly inspiring.
Why did you want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I really have enjoyed building things from scratch, kind of back to the Baja and FIRST Robotics competition, and then ended up building the site from an overgrown field at SpaceX to kind of the first launch, and like going from basically, nothing to something, is that journey has been sort of extremely fun for me and multiple times throughout my career and my life. I'll say maybe unlike Zach, I didn't like grow up wanting to be an entrepreneur specifically. I just wanted to build things, and found that a problem that I was very passionate about, the grid and energy writ large, matched with the ability to build something is equals starting a company. And so that was kind of what inspired me and Zach to start the company.
Interesting. Talk about a bit of your college life. So I guess like you first, what did you do? What did you work on? Did you build anything there? Talk about if you remember your first like day, week, first month in college, and if you knew what you wanted to do when you graduated. You go to Blackstone, or what was the sort of impetus there?
Yeah, so I had started some companies in high school. I started my first company in the 8th grade, which sounds silly, but it was actually a real business that I started with my 2 cousins that we scaled across the country, and it was a summer camp. It's a franchise summer camp. And I started another company my junior year of high school, and I got to college and I was like, okay, what's the next company gonna be? Like, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I'm gonna start a company. And I was kind of looking for the thing, and I think it was 18 years old, trying to save the world. And it was like, oh, there's where are the worst big problems, right? And I came across this problem of open defecation, specifically in India. There's, a billion people across the world, not all of them in India, but many of them there, that don't have access to sanitation infrastructure and also don't have access to reliable power. And so, we've been using anaerobic digestion in the US for 50 plus years to process human waste into biogas or compressed methane that can be used to power lights and fans and stoves. And so I had this idea to basically shrink the process, myself and some others at my university, shrink the process down, design a system that could be built with parts you could buy at a local hardware store, open source the design, and allow people to bring sanitation infrastructure to the rural world. And this was the company that I was going to start. Turns out it's a terrible business, right? It was like no customer, they can't pay for it, there's no business model. But at the time, I didn't know what good looked like in terms of business models. I had studied economics and finance and investing and markets because I'd always been fascinated by markets and stock market and companies, but I didn't really know what made a good one from a bad one. And I kind of banged my head against the wall for 2-3 years in college and spent a bunch of time in India trying to build this product. And I basically realized, like, this is not going to work and I need a real job. And so where can I go learn what good companies look like so that I can eventually start one of those good companies? And at the time, Blackstone was the best place to go train as a young investment analyst. It was one of the only buy-side firms that would hire you right out of undergrad. It was super selective. They hired 400 or 500 grad analysts a year. They were all very smart. They worked very hard. And I was like, okay, this is a place where I can go compete, right? I can go compete and win and learn and sharpen my tool belt and my skills and add tools to the tool belt. And so I really, halfway through college, kind of made the hard pivot to like, I'm going to go into finance, and went down that path. And that was what
I have a friend studying, or not studying, he's on the credit team right now. He's getting worked. The hours are ridiculous, but he's indeed competing.
Yeah, you learn.
It's amazing.
5 years you get 5 years of experience in 3 years of work, right? And it's super valuable.
Interesting. When was your first kind of understanding what good looked like? Was it kind of putting up Starbase in Brownsville? When did you really understand what good looks like? I think Thrive is also a great example of where you can do that, but you've obviously done Anduril or however you pronounce it, and SpaceX and a variety of places. When was your first look into that?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to have had a number of internships in college that were very formative in my understanding of what good looks like, kind of answer your question. And so since I studied mechanical engineering, mechanical engineering can do a ton of different things. And I sort of strategically wanted to decide which industry and which type of company I wanted to go work for. So I had four internships in, one in automotive, one in tech, SpaceX, and one in oil and gas, and decided that I really liked aerospace and SpaceX and sort of this like entrepreneurial culture within a company, and also saw that like that is what good looks like compared to like boring old slow company, stodgy automotive company basically is the kind of counter experience that I had. And that's when I was like, wow, you can really make an impact on the world through your job. Your job is not just to kind of get paid or to, collect a paycheck. And that was very inspiring for me in terms of all of the things all the good that a company can do in the world. It's not just a sort of like linear, show up to work 9 a.m., do work, get paid at 5 p.m. on Friday kind of thing. Like I saw, frankly, a lot of folks, other folks that were a few years ahead of me in mechanical engineering, who were in the Detroit area, went to go work in the big auto companies, went and did, and it was sort of like less inspiring.
Deere?
What's that?
What's the automotive? There's an automotive company, it's Ford, but then what's the
GM, Ford, and Chrysler are all in.
What's the other one that makes the construction equipment?
John Deere is they're in Illinois. There's Caterpillar that's also in that area. Yeah, the Midwest is full of kind of big manufacturing companies, and like while they were in their heyday, great, awesome companies to work for, what I saw in either indirectly through my friends or my dad who worked in this industry, or in my one internship, is like that is not the area I want to be in. I want to like be very inspired by what I'm doing. I want to do really good for the world through building a really big business, and also have this like entrepreneurship mentality within the company where you can own a lot and do a lot. And I saw that at SpaceX, and then when I went to SpaceX full time, I really understood, I think, more viscerally what good looked like from how you run and operate and build a business.
Do you emulate any of that culture in base? I guess that experience starting, you kind of looking at Brownsville, this kind of plot of land. How do you emulate that in base?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like a lot of our founding, we call values and principles, come from, frankly, my time at SpaceX, Zach's time at Blackstone, and others. We have a number of early hires from SpaceX, from Tesla, et cetera. A handful of those, like one great example that I learned a ton is this concept of high ownership. If there's a problem that you are either assigned or is adjacent to you or something, you own it from start to finish. Yeah. There's not like that's somebody else's problem, or like, that's that team. There's no like us versus them. It is all we and all you as an individual owning the outcome at the business level, not just a piece along the way. I saw that a lot at SpaceX, and you get a lot, frankly, more out of people and a lot more productivity and a lot more sort of pace of execution out of people when you give them high ownership. Also, it like attracts top talent. People want to own something. They want to like not just be a cog in the machine or a little small piece of it, but they want to see the whole business outcome because of what they worked on. And so I think that also helps us and helped SpaceX, from what I learned, attract top talent.
I asked Kareem this at Thrive. I said, who is kind of your most non-consensus but best hire? And he ended up saying, it's kind of Frank Gazone, who's our head of design, who's Willem's mentee. What's your answer to that? Is there any non-consensus amazing hired pace? I noticed you guys have 3 designers. It's very, very that's not normal. And my brother's out of frame. He's like, how many designers do they have? I was like, no, it's only 3, but it seems like there's 12, right? Like why do you do that? And are there any other non-consensus?
First of all, shout out Frank. Love Frank. Incredibly talented guy. And I think Frank and Willem both showed me and Justin in the early days the value of being design-led. And I mean, we're a consumer business. Like it should be obvious that we should be a design-led company. I think given the DNA of our leadership team, you look, Justin was mentioning, like you look at our leadership team, I'm the only one that didn't come from a Tesla or SpaceX, right? It's like all the 6 of us, and the other 5 came from Tesla or SpaceX, and or at least had been there at one point in their career. And those companies are, they have good design, but I wouldn't call them necessarily design-led. We are very much a design-led company, I think particularly because it is super differentiated in our industry. Like what power companies are design-led, right? And so the value of being design-led in our industry is much higher than in another industry where it's not as differentiated. So grateful to Willem and Frank for helping us shine the light on that to both of us in the early days. And then I don't think there's any like, we have this function that like you wouldn't guess we have. In terms of unconventional people, I think Jared, the first person that we hired and brought onto the team, you spend 5 minutes with him and you can pick up on the fact that he's pretty unconventional, but he's incredibly bright, very multidisciplinary in terms of his skill set. He's our head of software, but he can go deep on firmware and hardware and go to market. And he has an economics degree and he understands manufacturing, operations. He's an incredible leader. He's great at hiring. We have people like that on the team who I think are their skill set is not just like the thing that they do, but they have like tons of other skills. Cole, for example. Cole and I went to our head of growth. He was hire number 3 or 4. Some debate on who was here first, Cole or Dana, but he studied engineering at USC. We went to USC together. He was a year above me. He studied engineering. Went to SpaceX right out of school as an engineer. He leads the design efforts. He's very creative, but he's also super operational and technical, right? And he can go, across functions. And I think we have a bunch of people at the company that can move across domains. And in a business like this that's vertically integrated, that's doing all kinds of different things, you really need that. And that's been really valuable.
Yeah, I just double underline that last point around the vertical integration driving the need for a multidisciplinary talent pool, basically. And kind of back to the high ownership point, like you can't just be really good at just manufacturing. You have to understand the economics. You have to understand the design of the hardware. You have to understand the install motion, because that's like how you package the thing at the end of the line. You need to be very, very focused on the whole business outcome rather than just your outcome or your specialty. Everyone has their specialty. Everyone has their ownership area for sure. But we hope and strive and try to hire people, strive to hire people that can really span the whole spectrum.
I'd add one thing that's, I think, pretty unconventional, which is the way we build our talent team. So if you go look inside most companies, they have a talent team, they hire recruiters, and these people have done recruiting at other companies. And you hire a recruiter, and you're like, hey, how many people do we need to hire 50 people? And they're like, oh, we need 4 recruiters, we need 5 recruiters, get to 100 people, we need 10 recruiters, 200 people, we need 20 recruiters. Well, the first 50 people, I basically hired. Like, I was the recruiter, and I spent 50% of my time on that, right? And then I realized, like, okay, I'm spending way too much of my time on this. And it wasn't all me, right? Justin was very involved, Jared was very involved, Cole, but like I was driving it, I was owning it, right? To high ownership. It was like on Zach if we were constrained by time.
What were you doing? Was it like LinkedIn outbound? Or
I was spending, 4 hours a day on LinkedIn.
You get like 250 outbounds per week, and you would max them out on Mondays?
I max them out every Monday. I mean, if you came by my desk from 8 to 10 p.m. basically, I was on LinkedIn.
What was the message?
Oh, I probably remember. I was like, hey.
Don't give it away.
Okay, that's fair. This is alpha. Good idea. Yeah, this is alpha. Yeah, you got to join base to figure it out. But it's very dialed in. Very specific. And I was doing all the hiring, and I interviewed a bunch of recruiters, and I couldn't get excited about them because they all had playbooks, and they were like, well, this is how we do it at Meta. This is how we do it at XYZ company. I don't want to throw anyone on the bus. And I was like, man, I need high EQ, high IQ, high horsepower, willing to grind, down to learn, creative. And a friend of my wife's who, I'd gotten to know in Austin, really smart, high EQ, high IQ, all the things, played college sports, and she would always complain about her job. And so I called her one day and I was like, hey, you know how you're always complaining about your job? What if you got a new job? And the new job is going to be working with me, and you're going to help me build my team, and I'm going to teach you everything. It's going to be really hard, it's going to be really fulfilling, really interesting. And, long story short, she ended up joining us. Never hired a person in her life, never done talent in her life. Now she's leading a 3-person talent team. She took us from 50 to 250 people with 3 people.
What'd you teach her?
Just the blocking and tackling. So like, okay, this is how you get in front of someone. This is how you schedule an interview. This is what our process looks like. This is what you look for. This is how you negotiate. Like, this is how you make an offer. This is how you pass on someone, right? Like, you just do the thing with the person. And then, she picked it up incredibly quickly. So now we have a 3-person, we're almost 250 people. We have a 3-person talent team. It's because these people work incredibly hard. They're very smart. They're super focused, and they don't rely on playbooks that they learned in their last role. They just do it from first principles. And none of them have ever done talent. Right, and now this has become an archetype where it's like the other 2 people we hired on that team, they're high EQ, high IQ, hard workers, probably play college sports, and they're just like, they want to learn a new thing, and they love people, right? And they're like, okay, we're going to train you, and pretty quickly you can get someone up to speed on that. And I think the broader point here, which is we are pretty allergic to consultants.
You're a professional suggester rather than like an owner of a
Did you guys go with one of the MBBs, and then you're like, this is bad?
No, we don't use consultants at anything. So like all the design work you see. Yeah. No agencies, all done in-house. Yeah. Like, it's a 3-person team. They're amazing. They have, genuine, unique ideas that are super brand aligned because they're at the company. They've been here for a while. Victoria, who leads that team, has been with us for a long time, and she's, understands the culture and the mission, the vision, the strategy. And so you just can't outsource good stuff. Like, we don't use agencies. We don't use consultants. Here and there we do where we, in very specific, unique cases, but broadly, it's something that we avoid.
Interesting. I want to touch on that story we talked about off camera before we started, which is how you guys met. But I want to kind of go 2 angles. I want you to tell the story first, then you to tell your version of the story. What's the perspectives from both sides?
I can start. So yeah, how we met was I was at Anduril at the time. Zach was at Thrive. Thrive was looking at investing in Anduril.
Did you know of him before or no?
Something. No. We had not met before. I was helping the company do diligence for the round, and part of that was showing around the factory. And so Zach and a partner of his at Thrive came down to Orange County, and I gave him a tour, and we talked for a while, and kind of realized that we had very complementary skill sets. We're very different people, but very, very I thought worked quite well together. Ended up talking kind of every night for many, many weeks after that about just different ideas. Zach was looking at investing. He'll tell you this, but I was looking at investing all across the battery stack. I was very interested in the grid and energy and manufacturing, and kind of honestly iterated on the idea. There was not one well, I have this idea and therefore we should go for it, or the idea in late 2022 or whatever there was of an idea in late 2022 is quite different than what we're doing today.
Let's see, what's my version of the story? So we were looking at Anduril, and Philip Clark and I went down, we were looking at it together, and Vib, who's now one of the co-founders at Saronic, was at Anduril at the time. Yeah. And he was friends with Philip, and maybe they went to Stanford together. I can't remember if Vib went to Stanford, but introduced us to you. Justin shows us around. And in the back of my head, like, as I told you earlier, like, I had gone to college looking to start a company. I went to Blackstone looking to start a company. I was plotting, getting ready to build something and take a big swing. And so I was collecting individuals. I was like looking for people. And then I met Justin, and I was like, oh, this guy is unique. Like,
Why?
Very bright. I'll say that non-table stakes. The table stakes things are like smart, works hard, competitive. The non-table stakes things are like crazy enough to build something huge. Because you have to be pretty crazy to take a swing like this and like commit your life to, trying to build the Standard Oil for electricity. Like, that's a pretty crazy undertaking. And I was not planning on going for a base hit or a double or a triple. Like, I wanted to swing big and try to put it in the universe. And I was really looking for people who had that twinkle in their eye of like, oh, actually, like, you are down to chew glass for a couple decades and do something really ambitious. And I saw that in him pretty early. And then to Justin's point, I think identified we had very complementary skill sets. He was good at all the things I was bad at. I was good at some of the things he wasn't so good at. And I think we had mutual respect and just like worked well together, communicated well together. And yeah, as he mentioned, like, I had been studying the battery value chain. And so it started by...
Is it a Blackstone or a Thrive?
At Thrive, yeah. I mean, I started that at Blackstone and then really, went down into the startup world at Thrive. Blackstone was more of the inputs and the big industrial companies. Thrive was like the technology side of it. And I was just like sending him companies. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Kind of testing him. And then he was sending me, ideas of companies to start, maybe kind of testing me. And I was like giving him my like investor view, right? Like, I would like model something out. No, I think the economics don't work. And so we kind of tested each other for a little bit.
What did you send him?
Some really dumb stuff.
You had some dumb ones.
Some dumb ones.
The road one was kind of dumb.
I still like that one. Precast concrete roads. Yeah, it's my favorite idea.
We went back and forth for a while,
yeah.
and then I remember I called him one day. I was walking around Soho at like 9 p.m. in New York, and I was like, if we built a really high precision, advanced battery pack assembly business in the U.S., it'd be really hard to lose over the next decade.
Why do you think of that?
Demand and supply. There's tons of demand for batteries, very little supply. Pack assembly is really hard. It's to get right. There's a ton of margin. The cells are commoditized, the packs are not. And so this was like an initial hypothesis. And he was like, yeah, I think that's right. Like, okay, well, like, let's pull on this thread together. And then we started looking at selling this to utilities and, distributed batteries, and should they go in neighborhoods or on homes. I wrote a document called Battery Nuco. And it was like Battery Nuco V1, Battery Nuco V2, Battery Nuco V3. And it was like, we just kept, and then he jumped into the document and started editing it. And we just kind of chewed on it. And 3 or 4 months later, we said, hey, like, let's, I went to LA and hang out with him. He would come to New York and hang out with me, and we'd get to know each other. And they were like, all right, let's go to Austin. Let's spend a week together. I didn't know at the time how well this would resonate with him, but, I sent him a schedule before we went to Austin. It was like every hour of every day was like, okay, this is the thing we're going to work on. And then this and this. And it was like,
This is my favorite part.
7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Yeah. And I think when he saw that, he was like, oh, this guy's for real. Like, and then we got in a room and we just grinded for a week. And it was very focused and it was very deliberate. And we had a bunch of conversation and we took detailed notes. We're like, okay, we had the same approach to this, which was just like high intensity, high energy, truth seeking, first principles. So, I mean, when we started the company, we had a very kind of real crystallized thesis that we spent a lot of time iterating on. But I think we did it from a perspective of like, hey, if shit changes, like, we're gonna change our plan, right? We're gonna take this like learn, iterate approach to what we do. And I think we still try to do that to this day.
Interesting. Explain base to me from the perspective that I was a customer.
Cut your costs, not your power.
Cool.
Save money on your electricity bill. Make sure you don't lose power when the grid goes out. We put this battery on your home. When the grid's up and running, we use it to serve the grid. By doing that, we're able to sell you power at a lower rate. When the grid goes out, you get that battery to back up your home. So you get all the benefits of home backup without the high upfront costs.
How much am I saving?
On the order of 10 to 20% a month, depending on which provider you're coming from.
How long does it take to install?
A couple hours.
Interesting.
Be done in a day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why has nobody else tried to do this before?
Because it's really hard. You got to design batteries, make them, write software for them, install them, own them, operate them, build a consumer brand, deal with all the customers. Super capital intense, resource intense. You need a lot of people that are really good at a lot of different things. The degree of difficulty is very difficult.
Yeah, and I think what you'll find is there's not like one specific thing where we're like, oh, there's new physics here, or like don't look around that corner because that's where like the secret sauce is hidden. It's a complexity problem. Exactly. Yeah.
When I was on the phone with Willem, like I mentioned, and for the audience, Willem founded Terrain, and we'll touch on that investment story as well. But he told me, asked Justin about when he was in the actual truck, door knocking or you were door knocking or something, you were installing batteries. Tell me what's some funny story there.
Yeah. So we wanted to get a battery on a home very quickly. What I learned at SpaceX and Anduril is like you got to just try something because like the sooner you try something, the sooner you fail, the sooner you learn, both on the technical and the operational side. And so we set our goal very early on in the company to get one battery on one home, touch the wholesale markets one time, and sell that person.
Who's the first home?
It was a friend of Zach's in Dallas, and
Shout out Ben Schindler.
yeah.
We then promptly took that battery off the home because the hardware was really bad. But now Ben has a great new battery.
He does.
Working
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. We appreciate his loyalty and early customer journey, which was a little bit painful. But yeah, so we want to get a battery in a home. We had to go through some regulatory hoops to basically get a contractor's license and become a retail electric provider and a qualified scheduling entity and all this other stuff. And we're like, okay, we got the license. Now we got to put a battery on a home. It's like, well, we don't have a battery. We didn't design one. Let's see if we can buy one. We searched. We found one. We bought it the next day. Our first office was a house.
Yeah.
And
It was you rented it from one of your investors.
so we're getting from Salcher from Trust Ventures. And the only 240 volt is in the laundry room, and so we converted the laundry room into a test lab with a battery in it, and plugged in the battery and basically got like very, very basic functionality. Jared and I put that together. And then we're like, okay, we want to get in a customer's home. We found Ben, who was gracious enough to loan us 3 square feet next to his meter.
I basically called this guy's like, dude,
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah.
put something in your house. Don't ask any questions. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Like, we'll make sure it doesn't cost you any money. It's like, what are you talking about? Okay, fine. We show up with this crappy hardware, install it on the house. It totally breaks.
Didn't work well. Yeah, we like found an electrician on Craigslist who was a challenging individual for sure that we promptly fired. We didn't work with again. And we just like learned, and you just like learn by doing. It's like we learned from this electrician who was not awesome himself, but like knew more than we did at the time, certainly. Then like myself and Dana, one of our early hires that now leads our whole deployments effort, like got our apprentice electrician's license and like learned how to do installs ourselves.
Michael Scaria, our first. Yeah, you go ahead and tell it. Yeah.
No, this is it was maybe a different story, but on Dana's day -1, basically before she started, I picked her up in Georgetown in an Enterprise rental truck with the battery in the back, headed up to Dallas because this.
I had
office in
never
Dallas.
even. I mean, she came and interviewed.
Yeah.
But I didn't see her between the interview, and she was at an install on her first day.
Yeah, on her first day, and I was like, "We're gonna figure this out together." And yeah, she now leads our multi-100-person deployments team. Yeah.
The story I was telling you is Michael Scaria is our first software engineer, incredible software engineer, has never turned a wrench in his life. I think he would be comfortable with me sharing that publicly. We needed people to go install batteries. We didn't have a team of electricians. And so Dana was like, Scaria, get in the car. And like her and Scaria went to Dallas, and like there's these hilarious pictures of this software engineer who like has no business, being in the field installing batteries. Like, hands in the dirt, basically, like, in dog poop, like trying to install this thing, It's like.
And so I think it's like a theme of the whole company, which is like learn, iterate, try, redo, and you can move way faster that way than like being super thoughtful and analytical and like, there's a version of this company where we could have gone away in the lab for 2 years, built the world's best battery, which we believe we're coming out with now with our next generation hardware, and then like gone out to the world and been like, ta-da, here it is, do you want it? But then they like wouldn't have built a team, wouldn't have figured out how to install them, wouldn't have hired a bunch of electricians, wouldn't have set up a manufacturing facility, wouldn't have built a consumer brand, as Zach was mentioning. And so like we very much took the other approach, which was let's just try and iterate.
Yeah, interesting. When I was on the phone with Willem, he said the first time he met you was, I think, in the bedroom of this house. Tell me the story of why you let Willem on the cap table. The fact that he invested out of him and Eric's personal capital, then out of fund resources after. Tell me a bit of that story and how helpful Terrain has been. Obviously, I'm wearing their hat, and Willem as well, and Eric as well. I personally think they're phenomenal. I'm biased, though. Yeah. You guys are maybe a bit biased as well now. But what makes Willem so good, and why did you take his investment so early? Obviously, the Thrive connection, but what's the story?
Willem and I had worked really closely together, and so I had a bunch of exposure to his skill set. And I think in company building, in any endeavor, like companies are just a group of people, right? And you don't have the best people, in that room, like you're screwed. And that's why, I spent 50% of my time for the first year of the company on hiring, and I still spend a ton of time on hiring, and we're super focused on it. And I'm, going to make it back to your question, which is like, when you see people that are uniquely talented, you're like, hey, we're going to work together, right? It's like same thing when we met. It's like, oh, you're good. Okay, let's like figure out a way to work together, right? When we come across people, in our travels that we meet that we think are talented, I'm just like, hey, meet my co-founder Justin, right? He does the same thing. He's like, hey, meet Zach. And it's like, even if we don't have an open role, even if we don't, we're just like always trying to meet talented people, and really talented people, right? And Will is one of those people. He's just uniquely talented. He's incredibly thoughtful when it comes to design, brand, marketing, comms, everything human, right? He has an incredible amount of taste and touch and awareness. And that's incredibly important for any business, but more so for our business for all the reasons we discussed at the beginning. And so in the early days when I was still at Thrive and I was kind of chewing on this idea, he was super helpful in the ideation phase. And of course he did that for many years at Thrive. And that was kind of his core thing, was like helping people in the idea maze. And so he had been involved from the very beginning. When he started Terrain, and I asked him, I was like, hey, I'd love for you to be involved in Base in some way. And he's like, we don't have a fund. I'm like, I don't care. Like, just come help and we'll make it right, right? And so him and Eric, who's also incredibly talented in his own right, invested personally and then through the fund. And I think, we're now one of the largest positions, and it's been, super fun working with them. Those guys are just very talented.
How big was their first investment? Or how big was your first round?
Seed round was $8 million.
One thing I'll add also that I learned from Zach and a lot of the investors that Zach's brought into the cap table is that investors can actually be very helpful. There's this trope that investors can't be helpful. I was at Anduril and SpaceX, the sort of like that group of investors, the Founders Fund kind of crew, is like, well, they're just be super hands off and not be involved with the company. We literally have two partners from investment firms in our office down below us right now, working on literal tactical things. One's working on a quality management system for us, and one's working on legal and policy stuff.
Or they give them a shout out.
So Valor and Trust they've been amongst.
There's an Andreessen.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Xavier from Andreessen. There are three, and so it's like we welcome that. We want as much involvement as possible. Like, they have seen good and bad companies. We want to learn from them. We're trying to move really quickly. We're trying to hire and build a team as fast as possible, and they have tons of highly capable people, and so we'd love to have their help.
Yeah, Thrive, Valor, Trust, Terrain, Andreessen, all these firms have added an immense amount of value in the last 2.5 years, and we would not be where we are today without them. So totally agree with Justin. Yeah.
If you can, touch on the unit economics there. I'm just very curious. Touch on the stuff that people don't talk about, the actual energy metrics, the actual economics, and how you're actually making money.
We are a vertically integrated energy company. What that means is that we own the hardware, we design it, we manufacture it, we operate it, we install it, and we maintenance it long term. And that is really Act 1 of the company. Act 2, 3, and 4 will be further vertical integration on the energy stack into generation, perhaps into transmission and distribution, and further into retail consumption, basically. We want to touch every part of the electrical stack because we think we can pull cost out of it and deliver electricity to homes and businesses far cheaper in the future than they get today. That's the grand vision of the company. Back to Act 1, though. We are an OEM, as you said, to start with. So we design and manufacture batteries. We have a factory across the street, which you'll see after this. And that looks similar to another OEM, but we make the whole thing. So that means we control all the requirements, all the mechanical and electrical design, the entire supply chain, and we also manufacture it. So that's the OEM side. On the installation side, we are a home services company. We have vans and trucks and almost 100 electricians now that run around Texas all day long, installing these things, scheduling with installs, coordinating, submitting permits, interconnections, and that sort of thing. It's like if you took a vertically integrated solar or home services company, that's like a piece of what we do, but not the whole thing. We also once those batteries are installed, we bid those into the wholesale market, meaning we're an energy trading shop. So we do energy arbitrage, ancillary services, and other financial products.
There's a bunch of quant folks.
We have a handful. We have a whole trading team. It's really a analytical and software focused team that builds out automation and infrastructure to go bid assets in the wholesale markets. So that's like once the batteries are on the home. And then we also sell power, or retailer, meaning we buy power from the wholesale markets, we sell it at retail, we make a spread between those two things, and we use the batteries to offset the costs associated with being a retailer and hedge the retail book, so to speak, to make our sort of unit economics better. So that's the sort of full stack from inception of designing and thinking about the battery all the way through like selling power and trading it into
Which one's driving the most revenue?
The revenue comes really from the fleet of assets that we develop. So I would describe us as a technology-driven infrastructure company. So we develop technology that then becomes infrastructure, and that infrastructure drives our return and the value that we create. And I think the business strategy is kind of, in business school parlance, would be described as like compounding cost advantage through vertical integration and scale economies shared, right? As you reach scale, your costs go down, your returns go up, you pass those returns on to the customer in the form of lower prices. Lower prices leads to more demand, which leads to more scale, which leads to lower costs, which leads to higher returns, which leads to lower prices, which leads to more demand, scale, cost, returns, et cetera. So there's a real flywheel here. And that's why we've raised so much capital, why we're moving so quickly, why we're building a factory, so we got to get that flywheel going. And it's really starting to go, which is super exciting. But as Justin mentioned, we're just in Act 1. And there's so much more that we want to do. This is the biggest part of the economy, right? There's a 10 trillion in market cap to go after across the globe. And there's the IPPs and the Gentailers in the US, but there's Origin in Australia and Iberdrola in Spain and Engie in France. And this is a global industry where, there's Tokyo Electric, and there's big opportunities in Japan and in Germany, and it's all over, right? And so we think this is a global problem. We think that this could be a very large business with in the largest part of the economy. You asked about unit economics. We think the asset level returns are really attractive, and we won't go all the way into the actual IRR percentages, and one can do their own math on those topics. But the way to think about this is per home contribution margin, and there's a lot of homes out there, but let's take just Texas, right? There's 11 million single family homes, growing on the order of 7 to 8% a year, which is, by the way, one of the fastest growing states in the country. So call it 17, 18 million, round up to 20 million homes in the next, call it, decade plus. 20% market share is 4 million homes. Well, today we do about $2,000 of contribution margin per home. The next generation product will be 3, but for conservatism, let's call it 2. 2,000 of contribution margin per home times 4 million homes is 8 billion of contribution margin, right? You convert 50% of contribution margin net income, that's 4 billion a year of net income. The S&P 500 trades at a 25 times multiple. That's a $100 billion company. That's 20% share of one state.
And that's just Texas, yeah.
So the opportunity is really big, right? We think there's another 10, 20 billion of contribution margin to go after in the US. There's another 10, 20 billion of contribution margin to go after in Australia, UK, Japan, right? So there's a really big opportunity. We're playing the long game here. We want this business to be around in 50 years. We're capitalizing in that way. We're structuring it in that way, and we think there's a lot of wood to chop.
Why Austin? Obviously, there's like structural advantages, but big shift from the common consensus: go work in SF or maybe New York. Obviously, Thrive Blackstone are there. Obviously, you're in California, but why Austin?
Texas is the energy capital of America and should become the energy capital of the world. And Houston historically has been the energy capital of Texas, but Austin is literally the capital city of Texas, and it is the technology capital of Texas. And we are a technology company before an energy company. Like, we're really a technology company through and through that happens to play in the category of energy, right? And so Austin is the place for building technology in Texas. Texas is the place for building energy in America. So Austin is the no-brainer place to build.
And what I'll say is Texas in general, Austin in particular, is such a great place to do business from a regulatory standpoint, from a talent perspective, from an infrastructure perspective. It's basically all here. And I think to your point on talent, it is maybe slightly contrary, so to speak, than building a company in SF, certainly. I think it's actually a good filter. Like people that are really dedicated to the mission, really, really want to work hard, and are really excited about what we're up to, will come here to Austin. In fact, maybe half, I don't know exactly, but probably roughly half of our team on the engineering side certainly has come from the coast to Austin.
What, kind of like circling back now, kind of reached present day, what were the first, 3 to 6 months of this company like? This is massive. There's a big factory 200 yards across the street. Like, this is all great. What was the actual early story of making the batteries in the kitchen, working out of a house, getting your first office? Explain those first 3 to 6 months, maybe from both of your perspectives. From obviously there's different views, but that's the stuff that isn't really talked about much. I think it's always celebrated. You raised a big round, you did all this good stuff. What do you actually do in the early days that let you do that? And broad question, could be any answer, but what comes to mind?
We, in the early days, had this mindset of like, just show up every day and do the damn thing and get to work and put one foot in front of the other and make progress and take the next step, ask the next question, pull the thread. Like, we have, goals. We have, incremental goals to the big goals, and we just like go. And we just like maniacally attack the goals.
But break it down. You're, as you said, this is like,
so this is
very
what I'm talking
complex.
about, right? It's like, okay, we show up in the house. It's like me, Justin, and Jared. We're like assembling the desks, and then we're like, Okay, Cole. Okay, Dana. We find this guy Michael Scaria. Okay, get in here. Like, okay, we gotta get a battery in the ground. What kind of battery are we going to use? Okay, what are all the batteries? And like, let's stack rank them on all these different, criteria. And then it's like, okay, well, we need to be an energy retailer. What the heck is that? How do you become one of those? Okay, that takes a long time. Let's use another one. Who does this, in a white label basis? Okay, we found someone. Call them. Okay, great. Let's use them. Like, we need a customer. Yo, Ben, can we put a battery in your house? Right? It's just like, bang, bang, bang. And I mean, we write these monthly updates every month that are super detailed, and they all start with, this month we installed X batteries, right? And if you go back, it's like, this month we installed 3 batteries. This month we installed 9 batteries.
How many last month?
Close to 1,000. I don't remember exactly. Mine been 800, but it's the most important thing, right? So, well, how many batteries did you get in the ground, right? Nothing else matters, right? And then it's like, okay, well, can you monetize those batteries? Like, can you touch the wholesale markets? Also, were they profitable? Like, did you monetize them well? Constantly, taking down the next thing. It's like, okay, we got to get more batteries. We have to do it more efficiently. We need more customers. We need CACs to go down. We need, profitability to go up. Like, it's just constant maniacal iteration. And we have this crawl, walk, run that I think Cole has really kind of brought into our culture, which is like, hey, if we're trying to go do a new thing, let's like figure out what the incremental ways to iterate towards the best outcome are. Like, we're not going to get it right the first time. Let's just like start somewhere. It's kind of Justin's point earlier. It's like, we just start somewhere. It's like, we have a new idea. We want to do something. Okay, well, let's start. When are we going to start? How about now? How about tonight?
Yeah, and I think neither of us had specific experience in this domain. Zach was not an energy person. I was not an energy person, and so it was a huge advantage. But it was also like, it means you got to do a ton of research, talk to a ton of so-called experts or actual experts, learn just from a ton of different people. I think we're both very much learning machines, and it's like, how do you find someone that knows something about how to become a retail electric provider in Texas? We found this woman that was extremely helpful to us early on, that took us to lunch and taught us everything she knew about retail electric providing in Texas.
Shout out Mara.
Yeah, Mara was great. And then, but we did the same thing on how do you be a QSE? How do you become a contractor? How do you hire electricians? You just like find somebody that has done it and knows about it, and like learn everything you can from them. Ask from first principles why they do those certain things. You probably find like 50 to 80% of what they did is actually right. We should just go do that, and then the other 50 to 20%, you should go do something different. And that's how you really learn.
But we don't do strategy sessions or recurring meetings or, like, we just get shit done. Like, and that's the way that we still operate. It's like, if there's a meeting, like there better be a decision being made in this meeting, or else like cancel the meeting, right? And so it's that's kind of what I mean by like the company today looks a lot like it did back then in terms of like the culture, the way that we operate, the way that we talk, the way that we act. We're learning machines. We're maniacal about progress. We love to iterate, learn, test, try new things, and hopefully we maintain that approach as we scale.
As Willem calls it, base pace.
Exactly.
And I was sitting behind you for a little bit before we did this shoot, and I noticed you carry that little notebook everywhere. Yeah. What do you write in it? Why do you carry it around? And do you have your own version of that notebook? I didn't see around as much.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. This is a Thrive notebook. And I ran out of my space in my last one, and I was texting with Josh, and he sent me a box of like 15 Thrive notebooks, and now I have a never-ending supply. So I'm always trying to learn, right? Like we're learning machines, right? And so there's something to learn from everyone. And so whether it's a conversation with someone that's a direct report, or on a different team, or outside of the company, or a mentor, or an advisor, or an investor, there's something to learn from everyone. And so I'm constantly taking notes, and I give young people this advice all the time. It's like, just take notes in every meeting. Like, why are you not taking notes? Like, there's always, and then, at the end of the day, I flip through my notebook and I just like see what I learned, right? And it's like, it brings up memories and ideas, and like you're on a long flight and the Wi-Fi sucks. And so like you open up your notebook and you like flip back, you come up with an idea, right? And like, turns out businesses, like in one way to think about them is just like idea machines. Like, you got to come up with new good ideas all the time. And like, if you like come up with an idea, you don't write it down, like idea's gone, right? So like, and maybe, yeah, so it's just a tool.
I use my laptop because my handwriting sucks. That's the actual answer. But yes, I take a similar number of notes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We have to wrap now. We're on time. But I want to ask each of you, or maybe collectively there's some answer. If there's one thing you could say to the world, maybe it's the mission statement for Base, maybe it's some piece of advice to young people, maybe it's why people should join Base, something, maybe there's multiple things. What would you say to the world? Maybe there's separate answers, one answer, who knows?
Yeah, I would say like, we believe that energy is the most important thing to human prosperity. There's a number of studies and sort of literature out there that suggests that fact. And there's a lot of things that folks can go work on in the world. We believe that energy is the most important one for young people who are graduating or earlier on in their careers and they're looking for a really impactful mission. I would argue that energy is very much that mission. The type of company that you work for, I think, really matters early on in your career. As I was telling you earlier, SpaceX really inspired me to be sort of an entrepreneur and think from first principles and all that. And so joining a company like Base, obviously I'm biased and I think everyone should join us, but a company like us with a culture like we have is extremely impactful, especially very early on in your career. And so the reason to join Base really is to go change the world, have a ton of fun doing it, and work with really hardworking, smart people along the way. You know, we have the saying that was published as a part of our latest fundraising round, the Series C, that says, "Don't tell your grandkids that all you did was B2B SaaS." One of our engineers came up with that. It's like fantastic. Strongly believe in that statement. Honestly, like go work on something that matters. Energy really matters, and Base Power is the company that's really making the biggest impact in energy, I believe.
Yeah, I would say something similar. I think if you are a young person, old person, anyone who is looking for meaning and you're not fulfilled and the thing you're doing isn't making you happy, I might try finding a really hard problem with some really smart people who also want to work on that problem and trying to solve it. I have found that is the most fulfilling, most fun, most interesting thing I can do with my life. I think Justin feels the same way. I think a lot of the people who work here feel the same way. I also believe that our problem is the hardest and our people are the smartest. And if you really want to do that, you should try to do it with us because it's really fun. But even if it's not Base, if you're out there and you're looking for something to get passionate about, find a freaking hard problem and find some really smart people that push you and challenge you, that want to work on that problem with you, and just get after it. And the last thing I'll say is, don't forget to have fun. It's cool to have fun. It's okay to have fun. Work is serious. The thing we're doing is serious. We take our work very seriously, but we try to not take ourselves too seriously and have a lot of fun along the way. And yeah, find hard problems, solve them with smart people, and have fun while doing it.